Thank you, sir. Our sound guy. We some places have a green screen and you wear a green suit so nobody see you. Put it there.
We're not that fancy.
I'll get you a green suit to wear. Oh boy, you look like a Teletubby. Yeah, he stopped in. Oh my, Aaron, we love you. Aaron does a lot behind the scenes, and so it's nice for people to see him in front of the scenes. So now the millions of viewers got to see Aaron. All right, Proverbs chapter 20, and we get to this verse. We see another mention of leadership or kings. A king here. And so let's read this verse together. It says, a king who sits on the throne of judgment, and I'm going to two places, scatters all evil with his eyes. And so this mentions a king, one in authority, who's leading or governing. And so as you think about that, is there a king that we have that's special in the Bible? I didn't get my papers in here right. I'm getting everything together. Is there a king? Name some kings of the Bible that we might be familiar with. David. Okay. What type of king was he? What's that? A man of war. He's also described as a man after God's own heart. Okay. As overall, was he a good king or a bad king? Good king. Okay. Is there any others? We got Solomon, who we're talking about. Saul, just say it, yeah. Saul, good king or bad king? Started better than he ended. How about we put it like that? He was a king that the nation needed at that time. Emily mentioned Nebuchadnezzar. Again, he ended better than he started, opposite of Saul. So that's a neat thing to see. But what about Christ? Okay, Christ being a king, a fulfillment of prophecy to reign on David's throne. And so something that, as I was reading information about this, you pointed out, we see all these verses, this chapter, chapters prior to this, and some chapters to come, talking about kings or those in authority. And so when you look at this, what we see here is the king, attributes of a king. Who's the perfect example of a king? We say David. He was a great king. He was. But who's the perfect example of a king? Christ. Okay? So when you take that and you look at what's being said by Solomon, it says a king who sits on the throne of judgment should, and Proverbs, we think about Proverbs, these are what should happen, right? That's what these are all about. These are, Solomon, as he writes this, say this is how things should go. Do all kings do this? No, they don't do that. Okay. Hezekiah was a great king because he was one that did what this says, scattered all evil with his eyes. So the king has a great responsibility to do what? And not all kings do this, just like parents or employees or any aspect of your life that you're involved in. Just because somebody is supposed to do something doesn't mean they always do it, right? And so Solomon's writing about what a good king, what good leaders, what good leadership does. What do? They scatter evil with their eyes. And we see Christ doing that, right? To push it away. And so as we look at this, some things you might read, you mentioned this as being an attribute of the Messiah, right? As far as these are some of the things that Christ would do when he came. And so some label some of these verses as messianic prophecies, talking about Christ, because these are attributes that Christ holds. Okay, so we think about that. All right, any questions or comments about verse 8? Okay. Verse 9, it says, who can say, I have made my heart clean, I am pure from my sin? What's the answer? Go to Job. Job And we're going to Job 14 and verse 4. If you get there before I do, go ahead and read that.
Who can bring a clean thing out of an unclean? There is not one.
Okay. And so, this is a verse. Job poses a question. For something good to come out of something, what does it have to be? Good, right? For something good to come out of it, it has to be good. Go to 1 John real quick. I want to look at several verses here in 1 John as we think about this. Because we look at this, should we be trying to sin as Christians? No. Okay. But we also have to realize that we're not perfect, and that's what we're really talking about here as we look at this. And so, if we look at verse 6, 1 John 1, verse 6, if we say that we have no fellowship, or if we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do what? Don't practice the truth. Our responsibility as God-fearing people, righteous people, is to do what? What did Job do? He shunned evil, didn't he? Eschewed evil, depending on what version you use the word that's translated here. It says, but if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. Verse 8, if we say that we have no sin, what? We deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. Okay? And so, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, Romans 3:23, haven't we? Okay. Justification. What is justification? Eric, you've talked about this recently, haven't you? Hopefully you know. The phrase, just as if I had never sinned, right? Have you? We have. Just as if I had not sinned. For me, in my mind, the best illustration that I've been given is when you look at, for example, your Bible pages. Most of these verses have been justified. What's that mean? Okay. Everything that's short of the mark has been what? Moved over to make up the mark. Okay. And so we fall short of being perfect because we've committed sin. And so if we say that we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, the truth is not in us. What's our goal? Verse 7, walk in the light. So you go back and you think about what's being said here is who can say, I have made my heart clean and have been pure and am pure from my sin. Can we self-cleanse our heart?
It means that you handle things properly.
Handle things properly? Okay. What if this is talking about that there's no self-sanctification? Talking about our reliance upon God for salvation. And what I studied, that's the conclusion I came to from this verse is no one can say that I don't need God because I'm all right without him because my heart's okay. And so no one can say I have made my heart clean, I'm pure from my sin because we need God in order to do that. And that's why I tied this to 1 John because we need what? If we walk in the light. We've got to have that relationship with God, Christ, his blood, for sanctification. Am I explaining this well? That makes sense? Okay. All right. Any comments or questions?
I think that's what handling it properly is, by the repentance, the prayer,
Yeah.
returning to God.
Yeah, we had a
To me, I thought maybe that you first have to admit that you sin, and then you have to handle it properly.
yeah, and when you take it that way, that would be. But from what I went, from some sources I read, that's not the conclusion I came to. That's an accurate statement, but I don't know about this verse. I'm not saying you're wrong. So that's something we'll continue to study. But no self-sanctification. Okay. And that's important when Solomon's writing to a young man because he's saying, what's that song we sing, Lean on his arm, the everlasting arm? You guys familiar with that song? We'll sing it at Memphis. Think about that. We have to lean on our Savior for our sanctification, don't we? because we need justified because we fall short of the mark. No matter how hard we try, no matter how good we do, we're still short of the mark. Okay, so we need him to do the rest. Law of parsimony falls into this. All right, we'll move on to verse 10 unless there's any other comments. Okay, diverse weights. Oh, we haven't been given the sections these fall under. Kings, the nation, 22, be a good place to put. Who can say my heart is clean? I think maybe pride. Section 3 would be a good place for this. Come to verse 10, it says, diverse weights and diverse measures. They are both alike. They're an abomination to the Lord. What are we talking about? Different weights and different measures.
Unfair dealings.
Yep, unfair dealings. That's exactly what we're talking about. And so maybe section 14, business. We think about this. A gallon for me should be what? A gallon for you, vice versa. You know, we all would like to go to the gas station and fill up with $3, right? Say, well, that pump's way off. But the fact of the matter is, we wouldn't want to own the gas station and have everybody fill up for $3. So fair is fair, isn't it? And so when you think about that, you know, as Christians, a lot of times, you know, we want everyone to have the better end of the deal. That's a Christian attribute, right? But a good deal is what? A fair deal. Fair deal. Okay. All right, so righteous judgments, a good place to put this. Section 14, righteous judgment. Verse 11, even a child is known by his deeds, whether what he does is pure and right. Our wisdom blesses those who we are around. And so, I'll go back to where I had my mark. Just making sure I was on the right track. Okay. A child is known by his deeds. And so, whether what he does is pure and right. And so, we're going to have a reputation, aren't we? No matter how old we are, we're going to have a reputation. Children, do they develop reputations? You think about that. Next door, there's a daycare. They get babies. I don't know when they start. Several months old, don't they? I don't know. They have reputations at that age after they're there for several days or several weeks. The caretakers begin to figure out what the children are like, aren't they? The different children. They develop reputations. So even a child's known by his deeds who they are. And so can we hide who we are? For a while, maybe. But over time, what's going to happen? It's going to come out. So when you think about that, the end of the verse, our wisdom blesses those whom we are around. As Christians, what type of people are we supposed to be? Righteous, of good reputation, people of wisdom. People should know that. John 13:35. John 13:35. By this all will know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another. That's one Christian attribute, isn't it? One of many Christian attributes. What should we as Christians be known for? One thing is our love. There's a lot of other things that fall under that, right? But people are going to know who we are. Matthew 7:16. Matthew 7:16. You will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? We're going to be known by our fruits. What are our fruits? The things we do, right? Right. Our actions and our words, right? Those are the things that we see. Also, when we think about, I thought about James chapter 2. We won't go there. James chapter 2.
Will you
Then.
explain the fruit thing a little bit more? Because we were trying to explain it yesterday to a lady in the jail, and it was kind of difficult.
What's that? Of the,
Fruit of the Spirit.
No.
that's, yeah, different.
Being known by our fruit.
Those would fall under this classification. So 7:16, you will know them by their fruits. What is a fruit?
What they do.
what they do, right? When you think about a plant, then you have a plant and it produces what's the design of a plant? What's the design of a plant? You think about corn, Eric plants corn. What's the design of the corn? Well, it makes nice green fields, raises our humidity by 30% during August. You talk about all these things, but you say that's not it. What's the design of corn? To produce what's that? The feed, right? The fruit, right? You may not think of a corn, but that's what's produced by the corn plant. Yeah, that's the fruit. That's what it's there for. So when you think about that, Christians, what are we designed for? To produce fruit. What are our fruit? Our good actions, right? And so if you think about Ecclesiastes chapter 12, let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. What should we do? What's our duty? And we get to the end of Ecclesiastes. Somebody go read the last two verses of Ecclesiastes 12. It's right there. I can't get it out. Somebody jump in and help me. Let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is man's all, for God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether our fruit is, and I added those words. Don't crucify me for that, but this is for the understanding of our class. Whether your fruit is good or bad. So you go back and you look at Matthew chapter 7, and it says, a good tree, this is verse 18, Matthew 7:18, a good tree cannot produce what? Bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce what? Good fruit, right. An apple tree is going to produce what? Apples, right. Thorn trees are going to produce thorns. That's all there is to it, right. And so the basic principle is it will produce after its kind. So are you good or bad? That's the fruit that's going to come from you. That makes sense?
Good verse would be
Ephesians 2:10.
We are his workmanship created in Christ Jesus for good works.
There you go.
Which God prepared for, and we should walk in them. So workmanship means we were created with that plan, and we're patterned to make good work.
That's right. Good for you.
Not, John 15, we're going to be cut off.
We went rogue, not for our purpose. Yep. Good point. Good verse. I appreciate that. Anyway, so the end of the verse, our wisdom blesses those who we are what? Around. And so Eric talked about this. Get my Sundays run together with this Sunday. Salt. That's 3 ago, because I've been here every other one because I've been preaching. So salt, right? You look at this. Our wisdom blesses those who we are around. We're supposed to be the what? Watch Eric's lesson, you'll understand it. All right, verse 12. It says, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both. God created us, not just our eyes and our ears, but he's created our eyes and our ears. How many people misuse them? Yeah. So God has made these for our benefit, and so we should use them how? How God intended, right? One of the things when Jesus was confronting those in the first century during his ministry, what was one of the things he said about their seeing and their hearing? Remember? I didn't write down the verse reference. I failed to, and I forgot it because this was studied a week ago. That seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear. Right? And so hearing, ears, and seeing eyes, the Lord has made them. What do we need to do? Use them for his glory, for the right purpose. Okay. Section 27, maybe a joy and fulfilled life, right? A lot of people misuse things that they have. We need to use them for the right purpose. 13, do not love sleep lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will be satisfied with bread. Another verse talking about what? Being productive. You think about this. Christians, God designed Christians to be what type of people? A busy people. You think about all the people in the Bible. Can you think of any of God's people who were not busy? That were doing what they're supposed to do. You know, I mentioned a couple Sunday nights ago about in the temple. In the temple there would have been so much activity. I believe that it would have been a very active place. And I believe that the priest would have been very busy people helping the Israelites serve and worship God the way they were supposed to be. And so God's people, you know, they were herdsmen, they were shepherds, they were workers. They were designed to be busy, productive people. When you look at this, it said, do not love sleep, lest you come into poverty. Go to Luke chapter 10 real quick. I want to look at just verse 2 as we think about this. Luke chapter 10, verse 2. You can go ahead and read it if you'd like to. All right. Then he said to them, the harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. And so, you know, we think about we need to be busy with the Lord's work. We also have life work, don't we? And do people see what type of character of individuals we are by being productive people in the world? The problem is sometimes we let those other things distract us from the Lord's work. So there's a happy balance to try to maintain in our lives that we probably all struggle with. And so you think about that. So do not love sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, you'll be satisfied with bread. Luke chapter 10, when you keep going, then Jesus' apostles were commanded here as they went out to not take certain things with them. What were some of the things they were commanded not to take with them? Verse 4. Yeah, right. This was an object lesson in faith, wasn't it? That God would provide for them. Does that mean that they weren't hard workers and they weren't willing to pay their own way? No, they were very busy with the Lord's work, but God was trying to teach them a lesson that he was going to take care of them. And that's what Matthew chapter 6 talks about, is don't worry about the physical things. You know, we sing the song from verse 33, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. What were those things? The physical things, right? And so that's something we struggle with, I struggle with. I mean, so concentrate on the physical. We'll concentrate on the physical, or the spiritual, the physical fall into place also, right? Okay. So we go back. So do not sleep lest you come into poverty. Open your eyes, you'll be satisfied with bread. The open your eyes isn't just say, well, open your eyes and look around. He's saying don't sleep. Get out of bed, do something, be productive. And so as we mentioned recently, if we applied all the wisdom from the book of Proverbs to our current society, our society would change overnight, wouldn't it? What area of our lives would not be fixed from the book of Proverbs? What part of our nation would it be fixed? Every part of our nation would be fixed just immediately. Okay. And so, industry and laziness, 13. Verse 14, it is good for nothing, cries the buyer, but when he has gone his way, then he boasts. And so, boy, time got away from me tonight. 14, what we're talking about a little bit ago in verse 10, we talk about different weights and measures, right? And I made the statement, what's a good deal? A fair deal. A good deal is a fair deal, right? And so it's always nice to get something for nothing, but if we were trying to cheat somebody out of something, that's what this verse is the warning against. So good for nothing, cries the buyer. And then what happens when once he gets that item purchased and he goes away?
Right,
He brags about what?
about how much he had to pay and stuff.
Yeah, right. And so this is teaching about honesty in business, I think. Verse 14, we've got to be honest. Things I think about is the idea of being a wheeler dealer. Anything wrong with being a wheeler dealer? As long as you're honest about it, right? Upright. And so I think about used car dealers or salesmen. What are they known for? What reputation do they have? Say, this thing was drove to church only on Sundays and never went over 35 miles an hour, right? Mayor, if it's the truth, it's okay, but if it's not the truth, it's not the truth. And so we look at that. All right, we're out of time. Next week, Eric's going to take my class. I appreciate that. We'll be at lectures. And then the following week,